Hello, hello. It is Tuesday night. That means we are back for another couch conversation with the People's Pride Project. And this week, we have my lovely, lovely sister friend, my soulfire sibling, my universal alignment buddy,
Hmm.
Miss Karen Culpepper, herbalist, activist, instructor, clinical herbalist, mind you. She got papers. Um, licensed massage therapist. You do it all. So I am very glad that you've taken the time to sit down with me and all my nonsense and have a have a lovely little chat.
All the beauty.
How are you? How are you?
I am well, Sister Love. It's so good to see you and share breath time with you, like do this live. So thank
Yeah,
you for having me.
I'm excited. Now you know how we do. First of
Yes,
all, couch conversation, super casual. I like to say it's somewhere between talking to the professor and your cousin Pookie. Like there's this, we want to break it down. We want to make it easy. We're not doing the code switching and all of that nonsense that we usually have to do in these spaces to try
of
to
course.
sound important. We're
Mm-mm.
already important, so fuck all that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, you know me. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's real. It's real. I got to tell the
come out.
folks, Madam
Mhm.
Facilitator, you were the first person I met when I arrived at Soulfire Farm, and it gave me all of my life. It gave me all of my life. I was like, oh, yeah, that's my people immediately.
It was just something like
Yep.
I don't know.
Hmm.
But when people are supposed to be in your space,
Yes. Yep.
and that was definitely a blessing and a very important part of the arrival and the process and just getting through that week because that week went that was a lot. There was a
It
lot.
was a lot. It was a lot. And we both also had, I'm going to just touch down and take off. We had a plant ally, and we were getting served by our plant allies. So we bonded on that level too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, would you
Mhm.
care to go into because I'm sure some people have no idea what a plant ally is. They don't know what we're talking about.
Of
So
course. Of
go ahead
course.
and on that.
Break it down. So it's very beautiful and somewhat common, like in some programs, and doing just land-based work. You will be matched up, or really the plants probably select us.
They
And
know what's up.
so, exactly, they always know what's up. Um, and so usually a plant selects us, and I guess the task is to build a relationship with this plant throughout. Sometimes it's like for us, it was throughout our stay. For others, it's like throughout the entire journey of their program. And the task was to literally spend time with this plant every day. And so my first experience with, I had Ella campaign, I was getting red up and down and left to right. Yeah, telling me all the things and what I needed to do. And it was a very tall plant, so it kind of like commanded respect. I was looking up at that plant. I was like, okay, got it.
I think that's part of the importance that a lot of us are starting to come back to, but something that we've lost with regard to the connection to the land. It's not just
Sure.
connecting to the land for its value to us,
Yeah.
but recognizing what it has to teach us, what it has to offer us in that aspect, not just something for us to use and extract from.
How about that?
Because we're in a space now, especially since a lot of us are turning back to more traditional versions of spirituality,
Hmm.
um, recognizing that there are energies and beings and things that are
Sure.
outside of ourselves. And
Yes.
a lot of us choose to work with these energies and forget that plants have been here way longer than we have.
They're brilliant.
They are physically rooted in the source of energy.
Literally.
So Maybe we might want to take a listen.
Literally. And I always say, like, we must learn to stop being like human doings, and start learning to be like human beings, and just
Mhm.
being with a plan, and not this like textbook, what is this plant? It's like, what is your relationship to the plant? What
Mhm.
messages does that plant have for you? You know what I'm saying? So, like, even if you and I switched our plant allies, those lessons and learnings were for
Mhm.
you. You know
They
what
got
I'm
a whole
saying?
different story to tell.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I'm sure horseradish would have got under your skin too, but we're gonna talk about that at another time. So
Yes.
I am amazed by the extent of your work in not only the herbal arena, but how you branch off and use it to serve your community. That
Hmm.
is something I think is extremely important, especially like I keep going back. We're in a space socially and culturally where we're trying to remember.
Sure.
So I feel like this work is so in the moment, even though it's of where we've come from. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what brought you to it? How do you maneuver that?
Yeah. I mean, herbal medicine. So I grew up with a garden at home. And so, I mean, I know, just food, and like food can be so political, and politicized. And so in the summertime, my father and grandfather used to garden together.
Mhm.
And I identified like I'm a Chinese and House woman, right? So House meaning descendants of captured Africans in the US. And
Mhm.
so it was interesting to see like techniques that my father used as a brother, as a black man, and then my maternal grandfather who grew up on a farm, with as a farmer in a farmer family, farming
Mhm.
family, to see his techniques in farming like as a Chinese man, and so I grew up with a garden. And even though I wasn't paying attention because I was just being a kid, I
Mhm.
was outside playing kickball, doing all the things, and that was kind of my first introduction to plants, and also like living in a very rhythmic way. Like summer is about tending to the
That was kind of
land,
my first introduction.
fall is all about harvest, right?
Mhm.
Winter is a time to rest and plan. Spring we were responsible for, the germination trays, and my
Mhm.
brother and I. So yeah, that was kind of my first introduction to plants and land, and really with my grandmother, her alchemy and gifting was like food as medicine. And so she did all the things, like she ain't waste nothing. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
she would take the stalks of the broccoli and pickle those,
Mhm.
and it was like, this is amazing, spending so much time with my maternal grandmother. So that was kind of my in herbal medicine. What was my in? Probably my baby, who's going to be 27 in 6 days.
Oh.
She wasn't feeling well, and I remember
She's
her
so
just like
late and also
vomiting,
what's going
vomiting. And she had taken some pharmaceutical that,
on.
a
Mhm.
pediatrician prescribed. And I called like a 24-hour pharmacy. I was like, yo, my baby is like projectile vomiting. And she was
Mm.
3. And it was like, oh, I've never seen that prescribed in a child under 10.
Mm.
And so that was like, oh, I'm done. I'll go there, get diagnosed. And then I went to University of Maryland, College Park, um, and there was Smile Herb Shop. And that was like my refuge. It was like
Mhm.
plants and tinctures, and like folks doing neat things, and like plants growing all over the front and in the back, and herbal consultation. So that was like, it was Miss Jasmine.
And it's funny how it always leads us back, because for me,
Hmm.
those that know me best know I'm a big old plant nerd. Like I'm the one they want to call like Sheena. I feel XYZ. You got something for that?
Yeah.
Like
Uh
so
huh.
You know, my father grew up on a farm.
Got it.
My mother, um, while it wasn't a study for their side of the family, it was innate. It was gardening with grandma. It was
Mhm.
learning, the seasons and the canning and even things now I talk about or talk to her where she's like, well, why do you do this? Why do you? I don't know. My grandma taught me. But in that generational memory,
Sure.
the medicine comes through.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing when there's like no break
Hmm.
in, that alchemy and that lineage. It's such a, like, what a blessing.
I'm formulating a question.
Um,
um. So, have you found
uh-huh.
that what's going on?
No, I'm listening. I'm
Uh,
grabbing my tea.
I don't have mine. Usually, I have some. I'm not gonna say it's always tea. It's some sort of drink,
Okay.
but
Let me know all that.
of course, but I don't have mine today. Um, in your What made you switch, I guess, from being maybe an at home herbalist just to kind of keep your family together to
Sure.
really broadening into reaching into the community? And this woman is out here teaching classes, y'all. She's traveling. She's doing, don't let her fool you. She's cute and,
Right.
no, no, she is fronting big time.
You know what? That's me being a rhizome. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
it's usually, I never want to be in my ego. I want to be humble. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when folks finally get, when you center service, your light
Mm,
is so abundant. And so I'm just a rhizome. I just grow sideways and try to keep making connections and being in service. You know what? I actually was one of those kids like in elementary school. It's like, oh, you're really good in math. And so in elementary school, I was on this trajectory of
mm,
science and tech, which is probably STEM now, right? So
hmm.
science, math, engineering. So I did that elementary school, middle school, high school. So kind of all I knew was I need to go to medical school. So I
Mm,
went to undergrad. I was a science major, but ended up graduating with family studies, which I love. And then my father transitioned. And so that was a break. I did a bunch of things, real estate, all kinds of stuff. And then it was maybe a TLC show, and I was watching a baby be born. And I was like, this is so fascinating. So I was like, all right, let me go back to school, finish my degree. And then I ended up going to naturopathic medical school in
okay.
Portland, Oregon, of all places. And I
Mm,
was miserable, miserable. Like, it wasn't, I'm sure it probably still isn't diverse right now. But when I went, coming from the DC area, like here in the DMV, like it's black folks here. You know what I'm saying?
hmm.
And like black folks that are CEOs, that are business owners, that are high up in the government, and to go to Portland, it was like, oh my. Like DC, it's not chocolate city everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Um, and when I was in Portland, this is when I had a huge learning in energetics. And so it's very cold and damp there. And
Hmm.
that was like probably the sickest I've ever been. I
Mm,
didn't feel well in my body. I was like, why are they making like naturopathic medical school? It felt like the hazing of allopathic medical school, like MDs. I'm like, why are y'all choosing to bring these kind of, and that was my experience, but it's
hmm.
like, okay, I'm sleeping like 5 hours a night. How's this information going to sink in? Right. And so I think with that kind of kitchen medicine
Hmm.
background, I thought naturopathic medical school was, oh, we're going to go in on the herbal medicine.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I don't think this is for me. But see, that was that ego. My Saturn return stuff was breaking that ego stuff down. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to be a doctor. So I went to med school, moved back to Maryland. And then that next fall, I went back and I was like, why are you trying to fit a circle into a square peg?
Mm,
this doesn't serve your best and highest good. And so I just kind of went down a whole trajectory that like shifted my whole life. And that was kind of the start of all kinds of magic. Like I went there, I had my Reiki attunement by this amazing, I didn't know at the time, she was a priestess, blew my mind away, my Reiki attunement. And then that's when I kind of like all these little giftings, like when I was younger, like I used to be able to see, I would have this knowing that someone was going to transition and it scared me. Mm-hmm. I didn't have an adult or an elder mm-hmm. there or present. Well, I didn't speak up, right? So right. I didn't share that. And in my little mind, I didn't have someone who was going to like teach me about that or help me cultivate, like, what is that gifting that I know when folks are going to transition, right? So I felt like that Saturn return was me literally returning back to gifts, things, right? So while I was in medical school, this is me doing the most. I started massage school when I was in medical school, and that is what balanced all the things. And at that orientation, all we had to do was partner up with someone and just touch them in whatever we felt massage was. And I touched that woman and I was like, whatever you're going through, you're going to be all right. I started just all kinds of information came through and she just burst into tears. She was like, I'm getting divorced. I lost my job, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you're going to be all right. We're going to enroll in this school together. So that was kind of the path to like herbal medicine, you know, and having awareness and connecting with plants. It's like I couldn't kind of have that narrow, I shouldn't say, I mean, if I would have stayed in medical school, I wouldn't be the practitioner that I am today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You bring up an interesting point, kind of. You didn't say it, but I pulled something out of it.
Yes.
The idea of what herbal medicine is or should look like versus the practical application versus how it shows up. It's a far broader topic than we tend to give it credit for. Mm-hmm. And for most of us in our community, way back we understood the connection, but now we're just trying to learn what plants look like and what plant does what. So when you start talking about all of these other energetic things and how they coincide, people get a little
like hold up now.
Right. I thought we was talking about grass. Like So in the way that you teach and the way that you do your community outreach, how do you cross that bridge with people, or how do you make them comfortable in that?
Yeah, you know what? I truly believe, like, you'll hear me say like bodies, like not this one body, but like we're multiple bodies, like political body, emotional body, spiritual body, physical body, emotional body, mental body. And so I'm like, we are multi-dimensional beings with like giftings, with lineages. I feel like there's so much emphasis on traumas, but like we're here, all of us made it. Like we're still in the midst of a pandemic and we're the ones that made it for real. So what were the histories? Like what were the herbs and the foods that you used? What were in your household? What was growing around you? And so I just bring it back to you know what I'm saying? Like us as individuals, we all have our stories. They're all valid. They're all amazing. There's laughter, there's tears, there's sadness, there's triumph. So as long as we I just bring it back to us and we all have something to say. We all have something to share. Like, don't let the smooth taste fool you that you don't matter. Your stories don't matter. Your people don't matter. It's like, And I just keep it super simple and accessible, and like build trust. Like, don't doubt yourself. Cultivate your own intuition. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. How does this feel for you? Trust your intuition. And I always say that in class, like, it could be 60 different students, and I could say, okay, do a little mini case study. There could be 60 different formulas and they're all perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's not,
Mhm.
we got to get away from this like cookie cutter, we all trying to get a slice of the pie. And it's like, no, let's build a bigger pie. So that's kind of of course, you see all my Pisces stuff coming through. Like, I want to dream bigger.
Mhm.
Yeah, dream bigger, trust yourself, study, build relationships, taste plants, sit with plants, talk to plants, right? All in here.
Mhm.
Keep flexing the muscle, cellular memory.
And it's funny because so many of us tend to look at plants as either food or medicine
Mm,
and negate all of the other things and all of the other possible connections that come with that.
yes,
Um, just the act, we've had this discussion about food and how it correlates to other aspects in life.
sure.
But just, just the aspect of eating or ingesting something, it's literally becoming a part of your physiology.
Literal.
So why we tend to disconnect ourselves from what that really means.
Sure.
I don't know if that's really a question.
Sure.
It's just it's now the norm, you know.
Absolutely. Yep. And lots of folks, believe it or not, are so disconnected from, I mean, I think about pharmaceuticals. It's
Hmm.
pharmaceuticals serve, right? Like, if something happened to me, call 911. Don't bring a crystal. Don't do some mama say mama sa mumaku sa over me. That's gonna come later. Call 911. So there's a place where all of this
Hmm.
serves, right? And there are
Hmm.
folks that take pharmaceuticals and it saves their lives. And with pills, there can be a disconnect. Even with capsules, with herbs, there's a disconnect from taste. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
lots of folks only know sweet and salty. They don't know bitter. They don't know pungent. They don't know astringent. They don't know sour. Like,
Hmm.
it's such a disconnect, and I'm such a feeler. But I also
Hmm.
think that, I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. And so, the way that I was growing up, it was farm to table, right? We were growing the vegetables. So it was like, I had a note from my mother, like, pick broccoli, carrot, harvest, da 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 da.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had to wash that and cut it and prepare it for my mom. And when she came home, she would cook, right? And so, we were latchkey kids and we had to fend for ourselves and do for ourselves.
Hmm.
And then there's this invention of microwaves. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Hmm.
all about get something in, like, eat something and get something in your belly quickly.
Right.
Um, so it's just, I know it's a lot. It's a lot. I think there's a disconnect, and it's very interesting too, as an herbalist, to see
Hmm.
some of folks that are like millennials and younger, some of the like processes that show up. Like, you might see in elders, maybe even in Gen Xers, it's like, oh, autoimmune stuff. You can almost trace it. Like, oh, my
Hmm.
auntie had, oh, and then
Hmm.
my sister had da 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 da. But you're starting to see in some of the younger generations, like, they're almost ground zero. Like, nope, no one in my family has autoimmune stuff. And it's like, what is that? Why is that showing up specifically in, that specific generation? I mean, and my generation, not to put everything on millennials, not at all.
And I've never really looked at it like that, but it is true. The search for convenience, a lot of times we don't necessarily
Hmm.
um accept, or we don't give a damn about the future. It's like, I want it now, so whatever I can do to get it done now,
Sure.
the people that come after me can deal with it.
Yeah.
And to see certain things popping up within family lines or within communities, and communities getting illnesses that they've never touched before
Hmm.
because there's been social changes, or they've been removed from their lands,
Sure.
or now they used to hunt and fish and no longer have access because the government has come in. Like, all of these things play a huge
Yes.
part in how it trickles down generationally.
Yes.
And there's so many aspects of that that we don't necessarily put the correlation to. you
Absolutely.
know
Yep. We all have our trauma.
Eh, traumas, dramas, jumping
Mm.
off points.
Yes.
you know what was a trauma can be a stepping stone towards something greater, a
Absolutely.
catalyst, if you will.
Absolutely.
you
Yeah. And not everyone has that alchemy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hmm
for some folks, it's so like that alchemy can transition from like trauma to triumph, right?
yes.
Then there are some folks like it just deeply impacts them. They show up totally differently. Hmm.
We're going to get into specific herbs and what you would recommend, and just basic stuff for people being basic. But I like to talk about the sex work thing, and how
Hmm.
your herbalism led you to this. um would you say an advocate for sex work or sex workers? I don't know how you want to call it,
Yeah.
but
I,
sex workers are homies. I don't even judge. Like, do what you do as long as you're getting paid for it, and all bases are covered. Do
yeah.
what you do. But I'd like to know how the
Yeah.
herbs got you to that
Oh,
point.
okay. So I used to be part of this collective,
Mm-hmm.
Oxalis Collective. We're no longer together. And we went to Allied Media Conference in Detroit. So we submitted a proposal and we talked about plant spirit technology. And so
Mm-hmm.
all three of us did something very different, like talked about like live plants. I talked about herbal medicine. And then I think we ended up like making little juju bags.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was, who is now a dear friend, Justice. Um, Justice went to our conversation, came to our presentation, and then I went to her presentation, which blew my mind away, which was the war on drugs is a war on healing. And it blew
Mm.
my mind away. And so we had a conversation, and that is how SWAP, which is sex worker outreach project. That's how we, through Justice, I had that conversation and I said, let me just send you a whole goodie bag of everything. And
Mm-hmm.
then we just created like cheeky names for things, right? Like one is like, it ain't hard to hustle no more, or oh, I should have brought all the names. And it's like Bondasage, like all
Mm-hmm.
these cute, cheeky names. And then we kind of took it on the road before the pandemic. So that kind of
Mm-hmm.
brought everything to a halt. And
Mm-hmm.
so she was like, submit a proposal. And I talked about like each herb and I kept it super simple, right? So there were glycerates, which are sweet in nature. And you pretty much soak herbs in like some water and also glycerin. That's how you get glycerates.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some tinctures, which are alcohol based, but I didn't want to, I'm heavy on tinctures in my personal practice. But some folks don't do alcohol, it's alcohol based. It could be a variety of reasons, like someone's personal beliefs. They may have used that as a resource in the past. And then I did teas and like pelvic steams. Like we just kept it simple and herb infused honeys. And then
Mm-hmm.
I went to, gosh, what is the name of this? It's literally a sex worker conference.
Mm.
I mean, like panels, conversations, and I just table there, and that's my jam. Like computers, I was saying, oh, that's not my gifting. However, the marketplace, I love it. I can sell ice cubes to penguins, you know, so just having conversations with sex workers that were there, it blew my mind away. And I literally just, I said, how can I be in service? And folks were breaking it down. It was like, you know, sometimes I'm I don't feel safe having conversations with physicians about what I do. What can I do for an antibiotic? Boom. Okay, great. I can do a tincture that's an antibiotic, you know, or immune support, or how do I clear energy? Oh, okay, do the steam, spiritual sprays, you know. So it was through conversation, it just organically happen. And so the name of it was the Sacred Whore Line. You know, I let them pick the name. I'm like, I'm in service. I want to be in service to any community I can. So
Mhm.
they had autonomy over the naming. So Sacred Whore Line, and we just rocked it out. And then the pandemic, you know, showed up and reared its head. And then so now it's kind of like dormant, but literally one conversation, going to each other's presentation, just it just flowered into this beautiful discovery and relationship, and like being in service to a whole community of folks.
A community that I feel like is often ignored
Oh yeah.
um, through a bunch of misogynistic, patriarchal, religious nonsense,
Hmm.
just ways to judge folks.
Hmm. Hmm.
But what type of herbs, or what can herbs do for that arena of life that it would even be necessary to create that line?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it, just having conversations with some folks, to not brush a broad stroke,
Hmm.
but there were some folks that were like, Karen, I dissociate. Like I check out of my body sometimes, you know, in herbs as a way to like get folks back in their bodies,
Mm.
you know, like taste, getting them back in their bodies, smells, bringing them back in their bodies, even safety, right? Like some folks, they don't know what kind of transaction, you know what I'm saying? Like folks are putting
Hmm.
their bodies and their lives on the line sometimes. So yeah, it was those simple, like whatever serves, I can make it happen. So tea's not so convenient, right? You're not
Hmm.
walking around with like hot water, but that's part of like self-care at home.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, right now, a lot of people are in this buy some land, grow some stuff moment.
Sure.
Um, Personally, I will acknowledge a lot of us live in urban or suburban areas,
Sure.
and things like buying plots of land when you're living check to check may not be the easiest thing.
Sure.
But you still want to grow something. You still want to have some semblance of autonomy. You still want to have some sort of control of what's happening in your life, whether it is food, medicinally, or just because you like, plants around you.
Mhm.
So, for someone that is beginning, what would you suggest as a way to start? Like, we start in ground zero, base level. I don't know shit about shit, but I know that I could grow something if I try real hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know what? It's as simple as dirt and seeds. I mean, I know that sounds overly simplistic,
No.
but literally dirt and seeds and care. Dirt, seeds, care, like pay attention. And I remember I used to, oh my goodness, like plants when I was younger, plants, they just, I mean, what am I doing? A plant graveyard? What's going on? But the learning for me was
Hmm.
I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't building a relationship to the plant. Like that was some sort of accessory. And it was like, oh no, this pandemic, folks are like, the food situation was real. It was real. So I'm going to keep it super simple with seeds and plants, even buying starter plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we, based on access, right? Like here, sure, I can go to Mom's Organic Market and they have like live plant sales. I can think of even DC Mutual Aid, Apothecary. I'm able to like get plants if I desire. But yeah, I think dirt, seeds, also like tapping into community because I know I have questions. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
much a clinical herbalist, not necessarily. That's why I went to Soulfire Farm, right? Like doing the work. Yeah, dirt and seeds. I know that's overly simplistic, but like start there. Pots, dirt, seeds. And maybe you don't even need pots. I know folks they grow out of bags.
Mm-hmm.
Look at our beloved Cole, you know, who is growing on a fire escape. Like
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
I always say start where you are. So if you got to grow out of, an eggshell or an old paint bucket or a cardboard box,
Boom.
do whatever you got to do.
Absolutely.
And nature always finds a way anyway. So it's really not this big project that we try or we tend to make it. As
Yes.
humans, we overcomplicate everything.
Hmm.
Like nature has existed before us, it'll exist after us. Every time we try to do something, we get kicked out the way and nature reclaims it without us. So it's quite obvious that it can do what it does of its own accord.
Absolutely.
But if you had to give, like, okay, a top five or a top three, like, you need to have this in your little first aid kit or your little windowsill, what would it be?
Ooh. Okay. One of my favorite plants. Okay, first of all, I love nettles.
Mm,
It's stinging nettles though, so it literally can. It
yeah.
stings.
They're a little bitch. Yeah.
It stings. Yeah, it stinging
Hmm.
nettle stings. Um, so I'm just going off of herbs because there are plants that I love. Like I love the oxalis plant. And I started with one little, I guess, rhizome. Maybe it's a root, or bulb. No, it's not a bulb like tulips. But oxalis, they open during the day and close at night. And
Hmm.
so that is my reminder to like be in life fully and also rest.
I like that.
It's beautiful to like just watch and talk to. So oxalis is just one of my favorites. Plant wise, I love nettles, stinging nettles. It's so nutrient rich. Um,
Hmm.
and you can also like, it's food as well. So you can like saute it like spinach, that'll chill out all the stinging aspects of it. Um, I love calendula.
Mm.
Calendula is my jam. Um, it's beautiful, it's bright, it's like sunshine. I love watching like all the petals just floating in my water, great for the lymphatic system. And then I will have to go with, and I feel so sad, like our fence came down and we have
Hmm.
lots of deer. So anything that I grow, it's like a buffet. Um, So let me think of one more plant. I mean, I love, but I want to do one more, like red raspberry leaf. Oh,
Okay.
that's my jam as well. And I'm going into all kinds of food stuff. I'm learning right now from basil. I have just a pot of basil
Hmm.
outside, and it has all these like plant babies all over. Like
Yes.
basil was like, hey, and it has like little basils like all over. I went outside one day. I was like, there's 10 little basil babies all over the place. So,
Yes, there's promiscuous plants everywhere.
oh yeah, they
Um,
everywhere.
and it's funny how I come from a culinary background.
Yes. Hmm.
So listening to your top plants, none of those would be my top plants.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I come from things that you typically eat. So
Sure,
even the idea of things that I grow, I don't
sure.
grow flowers.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
grow what can I eat?
yeah. No, that's
And
real.
so to hear none of mine mentioned, I'm like, there's
Right.
another facet that I'm not looking at right now.
No, no. I mean, and hands down, my favorite plant, and it gave me so much joy, a soul fire, or my favorite herb is garlic.
Yeah.
Hands down, my favorite. Like it's anti everything. Like if I could
And
have
it's so
one,
easy to grow.
oh my goodness. And it's fierce. Like it's like that gave me so much joy when we were harvesting
Yeah,
garlic.
that was one of my favorite moments too. It really was. So, okay, now you have your starter plants.
Yes.
You have, we'll go with calendula because calendula is somewhat easily recognizable, multi uses.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful, it's bright and orange and yellow and lovely. And what do you do with it?
Yeah. And that's another thing, right? With the herbal medicine piece, it's like, which part do you use?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So some
Mm-hmm.
plants like dandelion, it's like boom, okay,
Interesting.
dandelion, right? You can use all the things. You using a leaf, that has an affinity to the kidneys. You using a root that has an affinity to the liver. You using the seeds, so it's what part are you going to use, right? So for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's the flower. And then part of it is, and I mean, again, I'm only doing kind of like indoor growing, but
Mm-hmm.
I would like dry the dry the flowers out. And so I have a closed end apothecary. So sometimes I'm just like laying plants. I have a stainless steel table and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
laying plants out there to just dry. And lots of time things that I grow, I use it for like my personal,
Right.
so kind of friends and family get that
Mm-hmm.
magic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it goes back to the disconnect of not recognizing how multifaceted these things are
Sure.
and how, like you said, different parts of a plant can be used in different ways. Different plants can become, your first aid kit or your spice rack or your just off of very, very simple things and knowing how, okay, I know what this flower does.
Yeah.
Um, but what does it do when I put it in oil? How can
Right.
I make it something, learning those transformation skills
Yes.
and actually knowing what things are more than just face value,
Of course.
I think is the key.
Hmm.
And it does come to part of us slowing down to find value in it
Yes.
and being willing to learn and to look. Because even this past summer with everybody, there was so much dandelion like everywhere, my parents' yard, my yard, everything. And they want to come out with like the weed killers and all of this. And I'm like, if you don't pick that shit first, like
Right. Totally.
there's so much you can do with the simplest thing. Going to the store, they're selling dandelion greens,
Thank
right?
you.
$3.99 a pound.
Exactly.
That shit's growing in my front yard for free.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Hmm.
Turn the greens into your salad. Pull some roots, dry them out, make some tea, make a
Absolutely.
salve. Like these
Absolutely.
simple things that we've lost the contact to say, I can use this.
Yes.
Or these are gifts.
Yep.
Use what I have and I don't necessarily have to run to the pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
And not everybody's body responds to pharmaceuticals in that way. And that's another problem.
Sure.
But that's a whole other conversation.
Right. That's
But
real.
how do you feel about straddling that fence within the between pharmaceutical or allopathic and holistic
Yeah.
um, medicine?
Yeah. And I think that was my push to kind of do a more clinical program.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted the knowledge. Like, if someone's taking a pharmaceutical, I want to know if there's going to be like a plant, like plant drug or herb drug interaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I mean, lots of folks, or I tend to get folks, I say, like, folks will be like, what's your niche? And I'm like, my clients are ready to do the work.
Mm.
So if it's someone that's like not, they're on a fence, I don't know about this, we usually won't work together, but I'm okay with that.
Right.
I ain't chasing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have the knowledge, my knowledge you may not desire in this moment, and you got to go through your process, and maybe we'll cross paths again, and maybe not. It don't hurt my feelings. I just pray that they find the practitioner that serves their best and highest good, and I keep it moving. But lots of folks, I tend to get folks that are ready to, like, I'm ready to get off of blank,
Mm.
like
Right.
insert pharmaceutical here.
Right.
Um, or they might be on the cusp of something, like they're about to put me on
Yeah.
blank, whether it's for high blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
blood sugar. Like, I am amazed at, there are like just younger folks, like late 30s. And it's like, oh, I've been on this pharmaceutical for 10 years, for high blood pressure. And it's like, okay, let's hone in on like some lifestyle stuff. You know,
Right.
so I always try to make like lifestyle, dietary, and herbal recommendations. And I just keep
Mm-hmm.
it simple, right? Like, if folks aren't drinking enough water, guess what the trickery is? Let's formulate a tea for them, and then have them drink a quart of tea throughout the day. So at least I know you got 32 ounces of, you know, herbal medicine in your body.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us are conditioned
Sure.
to run to allopathic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say, like you said earlier, it does have its place,
Sure.
but currently it's so intertwined with the financial community
Oh my goodness.
that sometimes you're getting stuff that you don't really need, or you're getting things that, there would have been other options that would have been better for you,
Sure.
but there's a financial gain to going XYZ route.
Sure.
Um, and there it goes. I'm telling you, I, mm,
It's
the
all good.
brain.
And I mean, you know what? I'm just going to fill in. I'm gonna step in. What's so interesting too is everyone's trying to sell something. Like, we are so bombarded by, and that's why I don't necessarily do social media too much. It's just too, information is coming at me. Everyone's an
Mhm.
expert. Okay, you did one coach in something and you're an expert now. Like, that for me is frightening on some levels. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? So, and then we just all be drinking the Kool-Aid, so it's kind of like, it's so much information. Who's doing the work? Who can you trust? Where are folks getting their herbs from? I mean, it's
Mm.
so layered.
Right.
It's so
Right.
layered. I've seen folks, and it's like some folks out here, they can be the sizzle without the steak. You know what I'm saying? Like, some
Yes.
out here may not, there are some folks, there are those of us, we are out here doing in the work and rooted in community and all about liberation and well-being
Mm-hmm.
and community care, just all of those things. And there are
Mm-hmm.
some folks that are just really great at marketing, you know,
Yes.
and taking pictures, so with all this
You see my
information,
face. Mm-mm.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like,
I
oh,
felt that one. I felt that
yeah.
very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because trust and believe, folks, that there are some folks that are out here doing the work. It's no time for social media and marketing because it's so like
Mm-hmm.
hands on the earth, hands on with clients, hands on
Yeah.
with community.
Yeah.
It's like,
And it's always an afterthought, like, oh yeah, crap, I didn't post that.
Sure.
Oh, that would have made a good picture. Crap, I
Sure.
didn't post that. I'm not
Exactly.
listen. My friend had to teach me how to schedule posts because otherwise y'all wouldn't see shit from me.
You better than
I'm
me.
always like, shit. I should have. You know what? I was busy. Fuck it. But
Right. I'm like, you better than,
so yeah,
yep.
that was my adulting moment. I had to learn because
Right.
otherwise, and for me, it feels like it's just noise. Like it's so much noise.
Sure.
You
Hmm.
know, it's
Hmm.
like this. And you're right. A lot of it is marketing and facade, which doesn't sit well with my spirit in the first place. So I'll be a quick. I ain't got time for it.
Sure.
But it just really feels like a bunch of noise, and it's like, how do you turn it off?
Yep.
So sometimes in the midst of these little snippets, you might find, you might be led to a
Sure.
person that's like, that's who I need to get in contact with, or that's, they're really putting the information out there. But a lot of times it really is marketing magic.
Hmm.
And for me, I'm a very hands on person,
Sure. Of
you
course.
know. Some people know my own health history. Like, nah, I need to know it, see it, where's it coming from, what's it doing, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. But we have so many people out here that are like Amazon herbalists. Like, you don't know what that plant looks like growing out the ground. If it's
Sure.
not already prepackaged for you, you have no idea what it is.
Sure.
And you're prescribing things for people. You don't even know if the plant that they're telling you it is actually what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
So you're seeing this thing in a book that says, well, this herb does XYZ. And you're looking at a package and it's like, well, it's got the same name. So I guess that's it. And that can be a whole problem unto itself.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. And I mean, it is problematic. And I think this was years ago when I was in school, right, studying herbal medicine. And I think they did some sort of study where they pulled just random bottles off and literally
Mhm.
tested it. And it was like a certain percentage of them that were not what was on the bottle, which was kind of
Mhm.
frightening. So, I mean, it does boil down to, I always say, if herbs don't work, and some folks, they will defend herbs to the end of time. I'm always like, okay, is what you're taking what you think you're taking?
That part.
So that's one. Are you taking the plant part that, this is, so it's like, okay, you doing the root and you should be taking the leaf, you doing the
Mm.
flower instead of the leaf. So there's that. And then
Mhm.
also back to energetics, right? So I'm hot and damp. If you give me ginger in the summertime, poof, I'm gonna turn to a flame. It's too much, right? And
Mhm.
so, like, I'm literally our next door neighbor, cute, they're just cuties. Um, the toddler helped blend this tea, right? So I'm drinking spearmint. There's some sage and rose petals, I think.
Mm.
And it's cooling because I'm hot
Mhm.
and damp. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you can take an herb and it can exacerbate things, like you're not going to feel better because the energetics of the herbs isn't in alignment. Just like the herbs I take here, it may be different if I'm in Portland, Oregon, and it's cold and damp,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Hmm.
So, how do we extend this herbal knowledge to the community or make it more accessible? Because, like we've already said, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, a lot of it is marketing magic.
Hmm.
Say you are starting from scratch. You don't got grandma's notes. You
Right.
don't have your innate sense. You don't know. How do you find reputable situations, or where do you go to start this journey if you're starting from yourself?
Sure. I mean, the beautiful thing for me, just like we met at Soul Fire Farm, right? And so now we are part of this like just beautiful web. Like I
Mm-hmm.
haven't even tapped into this beautiful web just yet,
Mm-hmm.
of who knows who and where can I get seeds from. And so I say, of course, there's your personal, learning as an individual and just
Mm-hmm.
learning plants. And then for me, what I've always desired is to tap into a community. So I'm not learning by myself, you know? So, um, I mean, and this is just me and my politics. So I'm like, I want to learn from Black folks. I want to learn from Black herbalists, like no tea,
Mhm.
no shade. And I've had white teachers, you know, I've had Chinese teachers, all the things. So for me, a component that's very important for me is like safe space and safe communities. And do I see
Mhm.
myself not only in the students, but also in the instructors and teachers?
Right. For me, when I take my classes
Mhm.
or choose my experiences, it's important that I look at cultural relevance, cultural reference,
Yes,
and I tend to like traditional practices.
sure, sure.
Listen, don't let the melanin fool you, but
Hmm.
this soul is old as hell.
Hmm.
So I like the stuff that has a lineage to it. I like the
Yes,
stuff that, has a track record of generational,
yes,
we've stood on this, we've grown
yes,
from this.
yes,
So for me, that's important whenever I decide to pursue a program.
sure,
And I'm glad that more and more of those are popping up.
sure.
But even in that, you still have to do your due diligence.
Of
Like,
course, of course. Yep.
because I haven't told you this, but I'm doing doula work as well.
Oh, go ahead. I'm
So
not
I did.
surprised, actually. I'm not.
It
Of
was like, you're
course.
gonna have to learn how to watch your mouth. You can't be talking to people crazy. I'm like, listen, sometimes you gotta hear the truth. But
Nice. That's what's up.
I just did my death doula training, and now I'm
Okay.
working on my birth doula training. So listen,
Yes.
I told you my goal is to be the crone in the woods. Like, go get Miss Sheena, because whatever's going down, I got something for that.
Exactly.
Because we need those. We that part of our cultures has almost been erased in our Western perspective.
Sure.
You need a big mama or an auntie or a somebody that you can go to that knows the ways of whatever when
Sure.
other things don't seem to work.
Yeah.
So these processes are necessary.
Yes.
The education is necessary. The
Hmm.
work is necessary.
Hmm.
And somehow being able to disseminate that through the community. Like I
Sure.
said, which I feel you do so beautifully, even though you're one of like the most low key, unassuming people I've ever met in my life. I saw you on a flyer for a program. I was like, hold up.
Wait, I know her.
It's like, why ain't you tell me? Like,
Just quiet,
but
under the radar.
for real.
Yeah.
And I love it, but I'm almost mad at you for it too. Cause every so often you need to flip a table and make some noise.
Right.
So
I hear you.
but you're seamless in the way you just move through these things, and I wish more of us were able to capture that fluidity and
Hmm.
still maintain the heart of service that you do. So
Yes.
I truly appreciate that
Mm-mm-mm.
very, very much. So do you have anything upcoming? Will you be any classes that you'll be teaching, or anything that you've got going on personally?
Yes. I mean, so much personally, as you know, I feel like I'm in like caregiver mode. Um, yeah. So of course, having this beautiful conversation. And Friday on Instagram, it's DC Mutual Aid Apothecary. So if folks are in the DMV, come on out. Again on Instagram, because I cannot think of the name of the farm right now. It's in Northeast DC, and it's just come be in community, free herbal consultations, free dried herbs, um, free fresh plants and plantlings, and just come literally be in community. And it's just multi generational, which is
Mm.
a beautiful thing. And then I am part of just a group of beautiful Black healers and movers and shakers. We are starting Black Mystery School on Sunday through Ancestral Apothecary. So, myself and Ayo, who is an amazing soul, so literally Black Mystery School on Instagram, just just plant folks in all sorts of ways, right? Like from root work to hoodoo to earth-based folks to voice medicine like singing and
Oh, wow.
tarot. Like Io and I were going to lead out the gate. We called it Two Roses Apothecary. And it was birthed out of just having conversations with Io during the pandemic and like dreaming up, like, what are we doing as elders in training, right?
Yes.
As, 30s, I'm in my 40s, and 50 somethings, like, how do we get to where you want to be, right? So my vision is like just having like long gray hair and I'm just sitting under a tree in all white.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm gonna make a quick comment about that elder piece. I feel like elders a lot of times are taken out of that crone role, and a lot of elders are raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're raising their grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just, my vision of being under a tree or in a rocking chair. It's like, no, they're still actively parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of all kinds of I won't even, that's a whole nother conversation about the systems and powers that be.
Hey, it is what it is. I ain't mad at it.
Yes.
But Black, listen, you gonna have to slide me a low key invite on the Black Mystery School because that sounds
Of
like
course.
something I'm gonna
Yeah,
need to get down with.
of course.
But madam, I
Yes.
only hold people hostage for an hour,
Got it.
and our time has come and gone.
Yes.
So, is there anything else that you want to make sure that our community, the People's Pride Project, any of those that follow you are aware of? Any
Yeah.
parting words?
You know what? My parting words, focus on your freedom.
Yes.
Focus on your freedom and dream up what liberation is for you. Do
Yes.
your work. You know what I'm saying? Figure out what
Mm.
liberation is for you and lean into that heavy and hard. That's it. That's all I got.
Listen, this has been another lovely couch conversation. I love when my people come on here and just drop like 15-second sermons and you feel like church all in your spirit. Like, yes.
If I had a tambourine,
Yeah.
right?
Like, that's what I came here for. That sentence right there was what I needed.
Yes.
So thank you ever so much. I love you. I will
Love you
talk
too.
to you later.
Yes.
And just thanks for taking the time to sit with me in my foolishness.
Of course. Anytime. Anytime.
Well, this has been another Tuesday night couch conversation with the People's Pride Project. You have just heard from the lovely, magical, mystical, all powerful Miss Karen Culpepper. Next week, we'll have Tashaya Nicholson, author of, and she's created a group called Camping Noir, I believe, or Camping by Wild Black. So we're going to dive into that with safety and safe spaces, and there's a whole lot. It seems simple, but there's a lot more to it. So I can't wait till next week. And I love you guys, and we'll talk later. Bye.